Mr. Pink. Welcome to How to Sculpt Miniatures, Episode 1, all about tools. So today we're going to look at a whole bunch of tools. It's going to be really scary and freaky. Oh my god, look at all these tools. Wait a second, we don't need all these tools. Let's just take these ones out and get rid of the rest. So here we go, we got a pile of about 12 tools here, but really there's a lot of crap here that we don't need. Let's just thin it out a little bit, get it down to the basics. So these 6 tools are what I would recommend. First off, this is my favorite all time, elevator tool. It's a dental style tool. I've heard it called an elevator, a Beal wax carver, something like that. You can see it's got a curved spoon end on one end and a pokey kind of little bit sharp knife point on the other. I could do almost anything with this tool. And I recommend it highly. Next, we've got what you might call a Games Workshop sculpting tool. This has got a blade on one end, very pokey, flat, good for flattening surfaces, and a spoon kind of thing on the end, but it's kind of pathetic. So this blade is really what you're buying it for. Make all kinds of things, score them, poke them. Excellent tool. Next up, we have what are called ball burnisher tools. These can be sold in arts and crafts stores for embossing. They have all different size balls on the end. These come in very handy. I really like them. Next, the Hydra Sculpting Tool, a scientific wonder that is a paintbrush with 2 nails shoved in each end. This end is rounded, the other end is pokey and pointy. You'd be surprised how much you can accomplish with this. Made by Hydra, gifted to me. I love it. This is my new favorite tool, Silicone Shaper brush. You can basically paint putty with this the way that you would use a paintbrush on paint. Phenomenal. And you can get it in all different sizes. These are 3 different ones. So this one's kind of that cone, pointy cone shape we saw in the last one. This one has got a flat wedge end on it, and that's pretty useful. And then this one has got a really kind of hard to explain. It's got a blade shape, but also kind of a cone end. It's very versatile, but it's also very specific. Anyway, these are great tools. You need to go out and get a silicone shaper if you don't already have one. They are phenomenal. Paintbrushes for putty. I love them. So anyway, we still got 6 tools here. This is too many tools. If I had to go to a desert island, I'd get rid of those 2 ball burnishers. I would save these 4 tools. But if I still had to narrow it down further, it'd be tough. But sorry, Hydra, your tool is going bye-bye. So now we got 3 tools, but I haven't got room for that many on the desert island. This blade is cool, but I do love that spoon, and I love the silicone shaper. Sorry, Games Workshop, but your tool is going bye-bye. These 2 tools I could live with for the rest of my life. A silicone shaper and this elevator, but really, this is my pride and joy. I love this thing so much. Spoon shape on one end, pokey point on the other end. You can just accomplish so much with this one tool.
So those are all the tools that I went through in my original How to Sculpt article on my blog about tools. There's a couple more tools that I wanted to mention that I've since taken up that are really useful. So here we go. First off, we've got, this was just called a clay tool when I picked it up at an art store. It's basically a pin with a handle on it. It's very solid. It's very useful when it comes to sculpting stitches, and I'll be showing you that in a later video. But it's just basically for poking stuff in. There's nothing on the other end, so it's just this pokey end that you can use for all kinds of pokey sculpting purposes, and it's got a nice little guard so that you don't stab yourself. Don't stab yourself putting the guard back on. Next up, we've got the ends of pens, which is not very exciting in terms of sculpting tools, but can be frighteningly useful, because if you look at the end of this thing, it's got a perfect little circle there, which is awesome for stamping green stuff, and an even bigger circle here if you want to stamp a circle in green stuff. So look at your pens, look at your markers. You've got all different sizes of these stamps lying around. You can stamp anything from rivets to lenses. Super effective. Like, look at how small this one is. This is the end of a mechanical pencil, I think, and it's got a tiny, tiny, tiny little opening on that tapered end, which is perfect for sculpting rivets into green stuff because it's very small. So look at that. Let's see how small that is. And this end might be useful for stamping as well, but you gotta look at your pens before you throw them out and think about, could I use this for sculpting, for stamping in green stuff? Like, look at this mechanical pencil, and right at the end, it's got a tiny little hole in it. So if you're not using it as a pencil anymore, it could be very good as a stamp. So yes, keep your eyes open. You can even modify these. You can kind of like flare out the ends with a nail or something like that to make them even bigger for your stamping purposes. But yes, very, very useful, and you might not think to use them for that. Next up in the category of one person's trash being another person's treasure, this is a coffee stir stick that we use in Canada. I think they're probably pretty common in North America. It's got kind of it's like plastic that's been rolled in on itself. But this is the ultimate tool for sculpting stitches. I'll be showing that in a later video, but just for now, what you do is you take one of these and you cut it down the middle. You get your knife and you cut it right there between the 2 kind of curved pieces. Yeah, right there. And then you wind up with two little pieces that look like this. Again, doesn't look like much. This is basically a straw, but what I've done is I've flattened out the straw, and it makes this kind of oblong shape, which looks frighteningly like a stitch if you apply it properly, if you stamp your Greenstuff with it. Again, I'll be showing that in a later video, but this is exactly what I used to accomplish something like these stitches on this aberration that I made for my homunculus coven. And I was literally using the stamp to stamp in the stitches and then sculpting stuff around it. And once again, I'll go into more detail in a later video, specifically on sculpting stitches. But yeah, straws, also useful for sculpting, who knew? Once again, this is Mr. Pink signing off. This has been How to Sculpt Miniatures, episode 1, all about tools. And in our next episode, we're going to talk about a really important part of sculpting, epoxy putties, specifically Greenstuff and epoxy sculpt.